Hey everyone, long time no see. After I created my YouTube channel 2 years ago and released my first video, I had plans to create other videos as well, but unfortunately life kind of got in the way as a university student. But I'm ready to get back to my channel right now. I want to start putting out some new content. I already have a couple ideas for the next few weeks, including some AR showcases and tip videos, as well as reviewing some of my friend units and providing some banner reviews and unit build suggestions. And I thought that the best video to start out with after my 2-year break would be kind of just a showcase of what I currently have in my barracks, the favorite units that I'm currently using, because in my last video I actually did not have any +10 units, but since then I've come a long way. I have a bunch of +10 units who are available at 3 and 4 stars, and as well as 2 units who are available with heroic grails. I'm also getting close to completing my first ever 5-star exclusive +10, so I just thought it'd be cool to showcase to you guys what I currently have in my barracks. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So I've actually organized all of my favorite units and my merged units using the blue heart, just so that it's easier for me to see them all at once. So first off, these are organized by color. First off is my +10 Roy. He was probably my second or third +10 unit. He's one of the units who is almost from launch day, so he's been really easy to merge. I actually use him in the Astra season as one of my 2 AR tanks in that season. Now I know he's not necessarily optimal, but he does do fairly well against Thrasier, which is nice. So I use him sometimes. Now, his build is pretty straightforward. He has got his default weapon, which is really good because it has QR built in. The effective against Dragonfalls also helps against Duma, since Duma is one of the heroes in Astra. Then he's got Reposition and Soul. Now, the reason why I'm using Soul is, as a tank, he wants to have survivability, so he does like to be able to heal himself up. Unfortunately, his weapon does not have a slaying effect in it, so I didn't go with Noontime. So to get the 1 cooldown Noontime, I decided to just go for Soul instead, because the cooldown of it kind of syncs up better than Noontime would if I were using it with this build. Now he's got Distant Counter, which is a must for any AR tank to counter all the mages and archers and everything else that's ranged. He also has Null Seed Disrupt. Now there was this one banner where I was blessed. I believe I pulled about 3 copies of Nyla, so I just used her to give both of these skills to him. Null Seed Disrupt might not be the most ideal B-slot for him, but it is nice whenever I see like a Brave Veronica or a Fire Sweep Lyn or something like that, so it does help. And finally, C-slot is Attack Smoke. Now, ideally this would be Pulse Smoke, but unfortunately I don't have any spare Pulse Smoke fodder, so Attack Smoke is good enough because it helps weaken the foes around him, because if he's going to be taking multiple people in one turn, Attack Smoke definitely does help. And finally, we have Fierce Stance as his seal. This kind of just helps with his attack, because as you can see it is quite low, so you know, it helps him, because sometimes he might not even be able to 2-shot a unit, even if he doubles them, just because his attack is so low, so this really helps with that. Next up, we've got my +10 Aversa. This is actually my most recent 5-star +10. I'm pretty proud of her. Now, when you're first looking at it, you might think it's kind of weird. I know almost every Aversa you see out there uses Red Dual Flying as her A-slot, but the reason why I'm running Life and Death 4 on her is, so I'm running her as a support unit in the light season, and actually running Life and Death 4 on her makes her soak the Bright Shrine and Chill Attack and Chill Speed, which is really helpful to protect my tanks from soaking that large stat debuffs, which is really nice when they're attacking. And she, in my opinion, is probably the best support unit for AR because of her amazing weapon. So she already comes with pretty good HP. With 2 mythics, this goes up to 58, but it lets her basically, you know, panic anybody who's next to someone else who has 3 or less HP than her, and she also gives them attack speed defense res -3. Now this is really helpful because although I usually do make it to tier 26 or 27 in AR, there are still some defense teams that like to run visible buffs on their units, so she really helps with that whenever I encounter teams like that. So it's really useful to have her as a support unit. So yeah, her A slot is Life and Death 4, as I mentioned, to help her soak Bright Shrine and Chill Attack and Chill Speed. Her B slot is Chill Defense. This is just to help with her role as a support unit because I run Chill Attack in her seal as well, so this way she can take up 2 of the chill slots on the team, which is really helpful. And finally, Panic Ploy as her C slot. Now, sometimes I'll encounter a team where there are units that aren't grouped together, so her weapon won't work on them, but they still have something like Attack Tactic, which is giving someone buffs. So this Panic Ploy is really just to help with units like that who are not close together but still have buffs, so I can still panic their buffs. Next up is Lucas. He was my first 5-star plus 10. He was actually featured quite prominently in my my first YouTube video because I was doing an arena run with him in it. But since then, he's actually reached plus 10 and plus 10 Dragon Flowers. I'm really proud of him as a unit. Because, you know, I've given him so many skills over the years. I have, you know, his default lance. I have a bunch of other lances that I gave him before he got his refine. I also have a couple A slots that are pretty good on him. He has Fortress Defense Res, which is decent on him when I was running a mixed bulk build on him. He also has Steady Breath, but at one point I decided to just take the plunge and turn him into an AR tank. Now, you might be looking at this stat line and wondering, well, how do you even make him work? Well, he's definitely the kind of unit who only works in light season, I'll be honest, because that extra 5 res from air is really helpful, takes him up to 37 base res, and the 4 speed from Peony is really helpful too, which takes him up to 34 speed. So I do also run him with full plus 6 buffs to every stat, so whatever you see here, just add another plus 6 to it as well when I use him in AR. He's the tank I use the most frequently in the light season, just because, you know, Tethys is pretty common in light, and he does pretty well against physical threats like Legendary Leaf. So yeah, his build is pretty self-explanatory. The first weapon, accelerates special trigger, cooldown count -1, and I actually went with a res refine instead of his default refine, just because his res is quite low. Without that res refine, it would only be 28, and having really low visible res hurts against units like Ophelia who abuse their AoE specials, so that's why I went with the res refine. He's also using the 1 cooldown noontime like Sule was, just to help with his healing. And then he's got Disencounter and Melcy Disrupt. Like I mentioned, this is from another one of my Nylas, so I'm just using this on him because I still do see a decent amount of Veronica's or Fire Sweep weapons in light season, so it helps to have the ability to counter back to them. I've been debating switching to a plus speed and speed refined weapon for him, so then I can pump up his speed to 53, I believe it was, and then I was debating switching to Null Follow-Up or Close Call, but I haven't taken the plunge yet, so I'm still debating that right now. And finally, we have Attack Smoke as his C slot. So this, like I mentioned, ideally would be Pulse Smoke, but I don't have any spare fodder of that right now, so for now it's just Attack Smoke to help weaken the people around his enemies. And finally, he's got Quick Riposte. Now with this low speed, Quick Riposte is definitely necessary because he's not going to be naturally doubling anyone, let's be honest. So this really helps him attack twice and usually kill the enemy, along with that really high base attack. Next up, we've got my Picnic Lucas. This is a seasonal who I really want to get to plus 10 eventually because it's one of my favorite units. Now, he's definitely not one of the best units in the game. His stat line is not really optimized for AR or anything like that, but I still really like him, so I'm eventually going to try merging him more. I've given him Berkut's Lance to kind of help patch up his low res. Given him Distant Counter as well and Vengeful Fighter. So this is a really good unit to use in Arena Assault. He can basically take any mage who's not green and any other ranged unit along with Distant Defense as well. It's just really useful to have him, and I really like his design as well. Next up is Shigure. So this was one of my more recent plus 10 units. He's a unit who is quite good. I got Pity Broken by him at 5-star twice back when he was available at 5-star, so I just decided to build him because why not? I know there are a lot of Lance Flyers like him with a very similar stat line, but I decided to build him just because he's the one who I had the most copies of. So as his A slot, I have Flaying Lance, pairs really well with Gale Force and gets him down to 4 cooldowns, so along with Heavy Blade, he can get off Gale Force against a unit who's ranged without even having them counter back. So his A slot is Swift Sparrow 3. This is probably the best A slot for him. It helps pump up his attack and speed. Not that they're bad naturally, but Swift Sparrow just really helps him get off that Heavy Blade and make sure that he's going to double the unit. In his B slot, he's got Chill Speed. I wanted to pull Pegasus Flight for him, but unfortunately I was not blessed to receive a copy, so unfortunately I just have to go with Chill Speed, kind of as a supportive build. And finally he's got Defense Smoke as his C slot. Next up, I've got Reinhardt, so this is probably my second +10 unit. He is a unit who, for me, as someone who never played any Fire Emblem games before starting to play Fae, he's someone who I really liked right from the beginning of the game just because of his design and how powerful he was, so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to make a +10 version of him. So his weapon, obviously Dire Thunder, there's nothing better for him out there, and honestly, even if it never gets a refine, it's still going to remain one of the most powerful and busted weapons in the game. I'm using Moonbow with him because I'm also running Heavy Blade now, so he'll be able to get off Moonbow almost certainly in the first round of combat before the enemy can even counter, so he kills almost everything he sees. In his A slot, he's got Deathblow 4, B slot, he's got Lull Attack Res 3. This is something that as soon as Kyria was announced as a banner unit, I knew I wanted to pull for my Reinhardt because he uses it really, really well. So I actually used this Reinhardt in Aster Season on my hit and run team, and paired with a Dancer and 2 Altinas, he reaches a huge amount of attack because he gets +3 attack from each Altina, so he can literally kill almost anything along with Lull Attack Res, so he's really useful as a nuke to have in any game mode. Next up is my Hawkeye. He is at +8 right now because I haven't pulled the final 2 copies to +10 him, unfortunately. So he's someone who I use as a tank in AR during the light season, so along with Lucas and Soleil, I have 3 tanks in light season who complete the color triangle, so it's nice to have 3 different color tanks so I can rotate between them based on whichever team I'm facing. Hawkeye is quite good. His weapon refine made him really good with low attack defense. This really helps, as well as the accelerating the special trigger, so because of that, I can run Noontime on him, the 1 cooldown Noontime, which is really nice. He's got Distant Counter as his A slot, and Quick Riposte 3 as his B slot. Now, I run Quick Riposte on his B slot simply because I'm already running Quick Riposte Seal for Lucas during the same season as him, so Hawkeye cannot run the Quick Riposte Seal, so I had to give it to him in his B slot. But anyway, he's also running Attack Smoke and Mirror Stance 2. Next up is my Summer Innis. This unit is actually going to be my first 5-star +10 exclusive, so this is his ideal build. I actually started off with Summer Innis, and the first time his Summer banner came around, I managed to pull 5 copies of him. So I was like, okay, I have this +4 Summer Innis, I might as well go for the +10. In the second year when his banner was rerun, I only managed to pull another 3 copies, so I got him up to +7. And then this year, I'm currently saving up my orbs to finally pull those last 3 copies of him on his rerun banner in June. So I'm currently at around 300 orbs. Hopefully I'll be able to get enough orbs to get another 3 copies of him later on. But anyway, so his build is a Slaying Axe to accelerate special trigger. It goes really well with Gale Force to get it down to 4 cooldown, which also works really well with Heavy Blade. So he's got Sturdy Impact in his A slot. This is a pretty premium skill, but Unfortunately, his speed is not that high without an A slot that raises his speed, so I'm currently hoping that I'll pull a plus speed Innis this summer, and if I do, I'll switch his IVs to plus speed and keep sturdy impact, but I've already decided that if I do get stuck with plus attack as his boon, I will probably switch Sturdy Impact to Swift Sparrow 3, just because his speed is kind of low otherwise and it's not really guaranteed to double people. He's got Desperation as his B slot. This is also really useful for a Gale Force user. And finally Defense Smoke as his C slot. So yeah, I'm really hoping to get plus 10 of him this year, and I'll definitely be putting out a video or a live stream or something like that for when I'm pulling for him. You guys are interested in that. So yeah. Next up is my Reyson. He's another unit who, like Hawkeye, I just haven't gotten the final merge for, so he's stuck at plus 9 for now. He has his default weapon because beasts don't really have any other weapon options, so it's quite good for him. It lets him transform and move 3 spaces, as well as heals 7 HP to allies within 2 spaces of unit. That is actually really helpful for me because I run him in Astra Season as my dancer. So because Duma is present in the Astra Season, he sometimes can catapult and kill my healing tower, which is definitely not nice. So Reyson helps heal up the 7 HP that Duma does the damage for at the beginning of the game, so that really helps the survivability for my tank. He's got Sing as his assist, obviously, because he's a dancer. And he's got Moonbow as his special. I also have Gale Force on him, but I don't think it's that good, so I'm just keeping Moonbow. His attack is quite low, it's only 51, but his speed is really, really high, so if he doubles a unit, he will get off Moonbow, and it really helps with his low attack. In his A slot, I have Fury 3. It's a quite good skill on him just because he has very balanced stats and it helps him raise his attacking speed but also his bulk so that he doesn't die if any units ever accidentally get a hit on him, especially in AR. For his B slot, I have Sudden Panic. Now, I actually run Aversa in Light Season, but I run Reyson in Astra Season, so Sudden Panic on Reyson is kind of meant to like mimic kind of what Aversa does for me in Light Season. Obviously it's not quite as good as Aversa's skill because it doesn't also give the -3 to all stats, but it'll do. Honestly, it really helps sometimes because there are, like I mentioned, some teams who like to give their units a lot of visible buffs, like for example the fully buffed Blade Tome Nino, so Reyson really helps get rid of those buffs. Now, his HP isn't that high, it's only 46, but with my 2 Altinas, it actually reaches 56 HP, so that's actually quite good then for Sudden Panic. And finally, he's got Guidance as his C slot. This is just makes him really nice and supportive, especially helps move my infantry tanks around, and if I ever need to use an armored unit as a bonus unit, this also really helps get those armor units around. And finally, he's got HP Speed 2 as his seal. The HP +4 really, really helps him during Astra Season when he's trying to get up Sudden Panic. And the Speed +2 also helps to get his speed to 50, so his speed is high enough to soak Chill Speed, even when my tanks have full +6 buffs to their speed. Next up is my Faye. So she is my main tank who I use in Astra Season. I normally have Summoner support on her. I switch between her and Lucas from Astra and Light. So she's got as her weapon Lightning Breath. It really helps to have DC in your weapon because then it frees up your A slot for, you know, a better A slot than just Distant Counter. I do have Distant Counter on her, but I found that Distant Counter with a different breath actually wasn't as good as running just a premium A slot with her instead, along with Lightning Breath. So I've got Noontime as her special, I've got Mirror Stance 3 as her A slot. I also have a bunch of other options for her A slot, so I also have Fortress Defense Res 3 on her, I also have Steady Stance 4. I just found that Mirror Stance was the most helpful of the ones that I have, because unfortunately, while Fortress Defense Res does increase her bulk, that 2 less in attack also really hurts her attack potential because her attack is quite low with Lightning Breath. So it really helps to have the extra attack from Mirror Stance, and the guard effect is also really nice, especially paired with her Pulse Smoke C slot. As her B slot, she's got Null Follow-Up. I also have Null Sea Disrupt on her, but I eventually ended up switching to Null Follow-Up because I found that I was seeing a lot of like bold fighter units or units who have sturdy impact or stuff like that who weren't letting her double them, or who were doubling her and killing her. So it's really useful to have this Null Follow-Up B slot just to help with units like that. And finally, she's got Steady Posture as her seal slot. Now, as you can see, her defense is kind of low, especially since I don't have a Naga. I was never lucky enough to pull her for Astra Season, so I don't have the defense +5 boost. I just have 2 Altinas, which gives her attack +6. So I do have to kind of increase her defense a little through Steady Posture. And the speed +4 is also really useful because her speed is not necessarily the highest, so it really helps to have the extra speed from that. Next up, we've got my +7 Python. He's a unit who, like Hawkeye and Reyson, I just haven't gotten the final copies to merge, but I guess I've actually been pretty lucky with him, as he's only recently come out as a 4-star unit, and I already have 8 copies of him, so I've actually been pretty lucky. As his weapon, I have got Candle Wax Bow, Speed Refined. Now, Candle Wax Bow is actually a great option for bows. They've given us some really good free-to-play bow units. So they give us Bride Louise, who also has the Swift Sparrow Bow. But I decided to go with Halloween Ralph's Candle Wax Bow just to pair it up with like the double Fury effect, so that he has a lot of visible stats. He's using Glimmer as his special. He's got Desperation 3 as his B slot. It is honestly necessary to run Desperation on him because he is a double Fury unit, so without Desperation he's gonna die in like the second round of combat after taking 12 damage, so it's definitely important to run Desperation in his B slot. And finally, he's got Defense Smoke 3 as his C slot. Another option would be Savage Blow, but I just decided to go for Defense Smoke with him. Next up is my +2 Dancer Reinhardt. This is another unit who, like Picnic Lucas, I eventually want to get a +10 copy of. Reinhardt, as I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite units in the entire game, so of course when they announced his Dancing All, I had to immediately pull as many copies of him as I could. Unfortunately, I only pulled 2 copies of him on his debut banner, but I was actually blessed to get him as my free seasonal summon this year. You know, when they let us pick a color for your seasonal summon, I actually picked green, and I just happened to get a plus attack Dancer Reinhardt, which is exactly what I was hoping for, so I guess I was pretty lucky. Plus attack is definitely his best IV. He doesn't really have any other good IVs since attack is the only stat that matters for him. So yeah, his build, obviously he uses his default weapon. It is really powerful, just like Dire Thunder, and especially since he's a dancer, there are very few other dancers who can do that much damage. As his A slot, he's got Mirror Impact. I used to just run Death Blow 4 on him, but when I pulled a spare Legendary Julia, I decided to go with Mirror Impact. This is actually really quite powerful on him, because his speed is really low, so otherwise, if he doesn't manage to kill the unit in 2 hits, they will retaliate back twice and kill him instead. But with Mirror Impact, nobody can retaliate unless they have Null Follow-Up or Quick Riposte, so yeah, Mirror Impact is pretty nice on him. I've got Chill Res as his B slot. He comes with Chill Res, but it's also just a pretty good skill since he is a dancer and technically a support unit. And finally, Joint Hone Attack as his C slot. So yeah, Joint Hone Attack is also a really good supportive skill because it helps give attack to the units around him, but also to himself since he will also be attacking. And finally, Death Blow 3 as his Seal slot, just to increase the attack potential. And finally, there is my Winter Cecilia. So she's a unit who I use on my AR defense team. She really annoys people because of her hardy bearing in her weapons, so you cannot vantage her. She's also effective against dragon foes, and there are a decent amount of people who run dragons as their tank in AR. So she's got Death Blow 4 in her A slot. This really helps because with Bold Fighter she'll get an extra 16 attack during her 2 hits. She's also got Bold Fighter, which helps her reduce the cooldown of Iceberg and get it off in her 2nd hit. And finally, she's got Armor March 3 because I run her alongside of my Duma, so they can both move an extra space because of Armor March. She's also got Sturdy Blow as her seal, just to help with her attack and defense, because she is a really good unit. She's got good attack, good mixed defenses, and decent HP. Her speed is obviously lacking, but with Bold Fighter, it's not that big of a deal. There aren't actually that many people who run null follow-up, so with most units she's getting 2 free hits off. So she's really helpful. And that is all for today's video. Thank you everyone for watching. I will be releasing a couple more videos in the upcoming weeks as I get to making them. So like I mentioned, I'll be releasing a few AR videos to help people who are either free to play or spend a little bit of money on the game. I'll also be reviewing some of my friend units and providing some banner reviews as they come along. I'm also going to look into making some unit build videos for some of the free units we've got, just using fodder that you probably already have lying around in your barracks. So if those are videos that you would like to see, or if you have any other ideas for content that I could put out, please let me know in the comments, and I will make sure to get back to you. Thank you for watching.